So I didn't really, I'm not a good reader. I don't read text well. I said I'm dyslexic. So, and then when my agent called, she's like, oh, you're reading for a monster on this movie. So I thought it was like some action film. And I had a bunch of auditions that week, so I wasn't really studying the script that much. So I go in and I'm like crawling on the ground and like getting ready in character, and everybody else is just like sitting around. I'm like, why are they not getting into the monster character? Like, why are they acting so duddish? And so I go in and I'm like, like looking out. And like the director's like, I like it. And he's like, keep it going. I was like, okay. I'm like doing all this stuff and doing my lines and all these things. And he's like, oh, wow, no one has had that take on it at all. He's like, that was amazing. I don't know what you're tapping into, but wow. And so I go home, more auditions that week. I'm doing all this stuff. And I go back for the callback again. And I'm like, I look at the casting director and they're like, we really like what you did. Can you do that again? So I like do it. I was like, so when do you actually think she becomes a monster in the script? And they were like, well, she's kind of like that, like the whole time. I love that you're saying that. That's kind of what we feel too. Like she really is a monster. So I leave. And I go home and I get a phone call from my agent. She's like, you booked it. You booked the Mobster.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the Next Entrepreneur Podcast. We're here today in the Propel Production Podcast Studio in Baton Rouge, and we welcome our guest, Miss Jency Griffin Hogan. Jency, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You're an actor, producer, and film director. Yes. And you also teach acting classes. Your business is called Love Acting Studio?
That's right.
You must be having a lot of fun with that.
Oh my gosh. Getting to give back to the community and loving to, work with all the teens and adults and teaching them something that maybe they didn't even know they were good at,
So what's the youngest you would teach?
Well, we have a 5-year-old class.
No way.
Yeah. 5-year-olds are wild and fun. We have someone who's specifically teaching the kids. I teach the teens and the adults. And then we have an advanced class that has a very special teacher named Bill Martin Williams.
And so the oldest student would be how old?
Oh, I think he's 50.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So a young guy.
Actually, no, 62. Actually, there's an older guy that just joined. Yeah. So we got all kinds of range.
So how would you describe your style as a coach?
My job is to help you fall in love with acting. That's why I named it that. And I'm obsessed with the craft of acting.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about the business side, although we can talk about that. But the class is built around how to be a lot of actors are coming from theater to film, so it's like transitioning from theater to film, and how to live and breathe in your emotions as a film actor. I'd say that's kind of the goal.
So that is the focus of your studio, film acting?
Film acting.
Okay, fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I speak with filmmakers or even actors or even photographers and ask them why they do what they do, a lot of times I hear back that they love telling a story.
Oh, yeah.
Through their work. So are you a storyteller at heart?
I'd say yes. So what's fun about being an actor is every day or, once or 3 times a week, you may get an audition. You're like, who am I going to be today? And what story am I telling? And a lot of times for me, it could be a drug addict story or like a dark dark character or a young mom who lost her child, or it's a lot of we don't really make art about nothing. It's always got drama in it.
Right.
And so you're opening the pages of either someone else wrote it or, a friend sends you a script and you're like, what is this going to be about? And I love the things that really are truthful and you can relate to.
So there's storytelling from the perspective of the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's storytelling from the perspective of creating a story, like
Yes.
of the entire story.
Yes.
Right. And so, I was thinking about that and I was like, imagine part of the joy of storytelling is you're starting with a blank slate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to, you can't do it halfway.
No, I mean, you have to find deep inspiration for these kind of things. And usually it comes through me in vision or kind of like a dream state. Do you know that state where you're like in between sleeping and waking? I call it dream state.
Right.
It's like where you're kind of like, am I awake or am I asleep? Sometimes I get downloads right in that time, and it's like a visual or some kind of picture or something like that, and I kind of follow it down the path that it takes my imagination, and sometimes that's where it all starts.
Yeah,
a visual,
right.
or a little image of something that I'm like, oh, I'm obsessed with that, and so I just kind of follow that path, and then somehow the story kind of starts to bubble up and develop. And it also has to do with, certain kind of eras and genres and things that I actually am drawn to as a person.
Right.
But there's this book called The War of Art. And it talks about how if you slow down enough, there's symphonies that need to be downloaded. There's scripts that need to be downloaded. Like that God, he calls it the divine in the book, but God is basically saying, like, here is a story that needs to be told. Just tap in and I will download it to you. And so if you slow down, you'll get the symphony, And so I think a lot of us are moving so fast. We're not listening to what potentially stories we could tell or write. Writers have to sit down still and download, like they get a download, right? Filmmakers are similar. We get like a wave of it. And usually what I hear is it comes to you like, whoom, like that. And then you got to get it all on paper.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about storytelling for me personally. Is like I get inspired by an image and then it starts to unfold into a little bit of a story. My first movie was Madeline's Oil, and all I saw was a woman on a horse riding with a bag, and she had medicine in it. She was trying to bring it to her daughter to save her life. That was the imagery I got, and she was riding through a creek, and so I started pounding out that story.
That's amazing. So I remember hearing an interview with Sting with the Police, and he was so prolific for so many years, and he just described it as. It wasn't him. It was just these downloads that was happening, and he was just writing.
That's how I think real genius stuff happens. Not to say I'm a genius, it's like you have to. You're not alone in it for sure.
Yeah,
there's something pushing the pin.
Right. So, so back on the storytelling idea that I was having is like so. You start with a blank slate, and then you got to carry it to a complete story. Mm-hmm. That's worthy of watching. You can't do it halfway, but you have the reality of the challenge of the budget. Like, mm-hmm. How do you tell? Storytelling is one thing, but to be able to do it effectively within a budget is a whole nother challenge, right?
So when you don't really know how to make a film, it's actually better because you're more creative and you don't think inside the box. So when I first got my first vision, it was like, my mind was like, I want to do this. And I didn't let anything stop me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think about the budget. I didn't even know what a budget was. I was like, I'm going to make a short film about this. I mean, I kind of heard about budgets, but you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, that's going to cost me what? Like as you get deeper into it, you start to realize your constraints.
Right.
And the more expertise you get, the more expectations people have how much you're going to pay them. When you're first getting started, you're just like, oh, I want to do this thing. And everybody's like, oh, I'll follow you. And it really is like about rallying people around your idea and saying like, I want to do this. And then, you hire a little writer and then they help you like construct the script. And then all of a sudden you're looking for a location. Like, oh, if I could just get this location, then I could really do it, or if I could just get these horses, then I could really do it. Or if I could just get this actor that seems to be pretty good, then I could do it, So you start to just kind of put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And that's how the story starts to develop. And I always tell people when they're saying like, oh, I want to make a short film, I'm thinking, well, you definitely want to pick something you're super passionate about because the finishing power is what you need. You got to have something that makes you, this story has to be told. Yeah. Like it can't just sit on a hard drive. It's got to get out into the world. And it's like you have to be a finisher if you're a filmmaker, because there's a lot of people who never make it. You got to be really, like my dad calls me a bulldog. You got to be really like intense and kind of like passionate about the topic. Otherwise, why even get started? If it's something that you just kind of have an interest in, like next.
Well, I met your dad.
Oh yeah,
I did. I met your dad outside.
My hero. He's so amazing. Yeah.
Outside of La Madeleine's restaurant at Perkins Road many years ago. I don't know.
It's wild that you remember it.
I don't remember how it is that we first started talking, but man, he was so full of energy and so passionate. We had this great conversation, and I remember it vividly. So when I was talking with your husband recently, who did our company photos and headshots recently, which just turned out amazing, Aaron Hogan with I Wonder.
My husband, Aaron.
Yeah. And when he made that connection with me, I was like, oh, wait a second. I met that guy. He was awesome. So I can see where the tenacity would have come from.
Yeah, he's a teddy bear, but with a big heart, but a really buff guy,
Yeah. Super athlete.
An awesome quarterback. Yeah.
So you're acting, we get that. There's a producer and the director.
Mm-hmm.
What are those two different things?
So the director usually is thinking more artistically. They're like thinking of how each shot's going to line up and how it's all going to come together as a story. They're going to tell the actors, hey, on every shot they're going to have little notes for them and say, can you try it again and do it more like this? And they're the ones that have a creative vision of the story from beginning to end in their mind. The producer is more nuts and bolts and kind of pulling the resources together in order to accomplish the project. So the producer is going to make sure you have the budget lined up, make sure you've got your locations, the timing, and all you have to get releases from the locations and things like that. Like very, business side, shall I call it?
Right.
The business side.
Okay, so if you look at all three that you do and have done, actor, producer, director, is there one that you prefer over the other?
Well, acting's definitely the easiest.
Is it?
You just show up and you get to dive into character and you just like go for it. And then you get a little, okay, yeah, this way. I'm like, okay. And you do it. And then they're like, great. And doing all three is a challenge together. And that I have done that.
Oh my goodness.
And I have done where I have never just produced. I like to make things happen. That's just what I love to do.
Yeah.
So producing is just the vehicle to get to do what I really want to do, which is tell the stories I want to tell. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I see it as the vehicle, and it's kind of like I have to produce in order to be able to direct and act right now until someone believes in me and says, actually, I'm going to hire you to do that.
Okay, we're going to find out how you made some of those transitions in your career, but let's dial it back and go to the start of the story. So were you like a movie buff as a kid?
I'd say, being a movie buff was hard in the 80s and 90s because, you had VHS. So it's whatever your parents could get their hands on and what they could afford, So you had these little TVs and you stick the VHS in. Right. So we had 5 of those that we were allowed to watch in our house. And one was Anne of Green Gables, The Man from Snowy River, The Sound of Music, Three Amigos. And I think it was this family movie. I can't remember. It was something about adoption. So we had these 5 movies. And so I watched them on repeat. I mean, Sound of Music, I probably knew it backwards and frontward. The Man from Snowy River. Have you ever seen that movie? It's a classic movie shot. It's a Western shot in Australia. Beautiful love story. Anyway, these movies crafted who I am today as a filmmaker.
So when you look back at those 5, were you like, hey, that was pretty good choices there?
They just what ended up in our house.
Right.
And I was obsessed. I mean, I wore them out to the tape, just like falling apart. And I'm like, can I watch it again? Can I watch it again? It was like I was obsessed.
So when did you start acting?
I think, I was an introvert sort of as a kid. I wasn't the typical type actor. I think I did a few plays in junior high.
Just like school stuff.
Yeah, school stuff, church stuff. And then I saw a show a woman did. And it was a one-woman show about the lineage of Christ. 5 women in the lineage of Christ. And I watched her do it, and I was kind of transformed and kind of having an out-of-body experience watching her do it because she was playing 5 different characters and moving from different chairs, and they were talking to each other.
Oh, wow.
So I was fascinated with it, and then I felt like I was supposed to do that same show.
Was that like community theater or something?
Oh, no. This was someone I saw at in a church setting.
I see.
And I thought, I was 16, had never really been on the stage by myself like that. And I just felt like I could memorize that. The one thing that I had going for me was a really strong memory. I'm severely dyslexic, but I'm an audible learner. And if I listen to something a few times, I can pretty much do it. Wow. And so I sat in my room on Thanksgiving break and learned the whole thing. It was an hour and a half. So I just started doing it. And then people found out that I was doing it. And they started hiring me to go to their Christmas party to do it. And then go to these big churches. I would perform for like 400, 600 people. And
No way.
I'm 16, 17 years old traveling around doing a show all of a sudden. And fell in love with it.
Oh, I bet.
Fell in love with it. And I thought I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, which is crazy. I did not think I was going to be an actor growing up. I thought I was going to be a broadcast journalist, travel the world, do the news. But then I went to go audition for that at the college that I was going to. And they were like, ooh, you can't really read, can you? And I was like, oh, that's going to be rough reading the teleprompter, isn't it? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I can't write a sentence to save my life. Really struggle in that department. I have to get a lot of help in that area. And school was always tough in that sense.
Right. Needed
lots of tutors and things. Barely made it through my first year of college. I almost flunked every class. So yes, they were like, you'd like acting. Why don't you go audition in the theater program? Maybe you could act like a broadcast journalist. I was devastated because I thought this was like what I wanted to do. And so I marched over to the theater program with my mom and I got an appointment and I got a scholarship for acting that day.
No kidding.
They're like, if you come here, we'll give you a scholarship for acting.
And that was Louisiana Tech?
Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
Because I did my little monologues from them from the show that I've been traveling around doing. And they're like, we'll sign you today. I was like, okay, great. So that changed my whole trajectory, really.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I have them to thank.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you did college in Ruston.
25 plays a year. I took modern dance every day. Became a real thespian, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I read that you graduated and then you bolted to LA.
I did.
So that's quite a juxtaposition there, Ruston to LA.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm a horse girl. And if I had met my husband in Ruston, I probably would have lived there forever. I really loved Ruston.
Yeah.
And kind of a content heart in general, sort of, I like the dreams and all this stuff. But so when my friend was like, hey, you want to move to LA? Like right out of school, like in May. And I was like, well, yeah, kind of a wild choice and just took off and went.
So what did that initial time in LA look like for a
22-year-old?
Yeah.
Banging on doors trying to get a job. I could not get a job waiting tables. I could not get a job at Starbucks. I was writing home like, Mom and Dad, can I have a little bit more money? Because my rent was only $400, which wasn't bad.
Right.
But we were sharing room, me and this girl. So it was pretty interesting, because those jobs are very competitive. If you've never really had a food industry job, every actor in the world has those jobs.
Right.
So you can't just get a job waiting tables. It's like impossible. So it's very competitive in that way.
It's full of starving artists. Right?
Oh my gosh. And there were so many beautiful people. I was struck by all the different ethnicities. Because, coming from Louisiana, I had only seen a few. And so I was like, where are you from? And I met all these different kinds of men. And I was like, I want to date all of them. I just want, wait, what is that accent? Excuse me? And they were so beautiful from different countries. And they all were into their passionate art form, whether it was music or acting or directing. They were so passionate. And so I was passionate. They were passionate. It was like, whoa. So we, I started on that journey of dating all of them.
Yeah. I was thinking you may have fallen in love a few times. Right?
I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, LA is wild.
So Lainey, who is producing today, and Allison and I were in LA just, I guess, middle of last year, maybe, doing several things, several podcasts, and interviewed an actor, Jay Hughley, there. And we really had fun. We were all over the city, right? And we got a better insight to it. Of course, that was a while back since you were there, but it's a really cool place.
Oh, I visited a lot and have tons of friends still that live there. And, I moved to the Valley when I first got there and it's all concrete. And I was like, wait a second, where's the beach? So I ended up getting a job at Starbucks in Malibu. And I found a girl out there who actually needed her horses ridden. so I got this really great hookup. So I was riding horses in Malibu and working at Starbucks and meeting famous people every day and riding into LA to go to my acting class and going into the heart of the city for acting classes like 3 times a week, and went to a conservatory there. 4 days a week. So I was really all over. I was like in Hollywood. I was surfing at the beach. I was riding the horses. I was, just like living this crazy wild dream.
That sounds idyllic.
It was so fun until I started really landing roles. That was kind of what my life looked like.
And so how does that process work? It's audition, rejection.
Oh my gosh. I only had a commercial agent. Okay.
Which means
I was auditioning against every beautiful Russian model in LA. Okay. And I show up like kind of Eastern European, as all Louisiana girls are. We're just like a melting pot.
Right.
So I show up and they have an Eastern European category, and I'm looking around like, I don't look like any of you. Like, I am a Louisiana girl and y'all are hot girls. You're really beautiful. Like, what the heck? Like, how did I get in this room? And of course I didn't get many jobs because they were all so freaking gorgeous. And so it was frustrating, honestly, because back home, here we are, this is like early 2000s, Louisiana's starting to bubble up with all this film. So I'm hearing rumors of all my friends saying like, oh, I got a role in a movie. I'm like, you did what? Did you don't even know what you're doing. I've been in this conservatory. Like, I'm a real actor, what do you know about acting?
Yeah, right.
And so I was getting jealous of my friends back home getting, better auditions and stuff.
So the Louisiana film industry had started for real, and that's all. The basis of that is that film tax credit program, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they built some real studios here. And
Celtic Studios. And then New Orleans has its own. A lot of TV shows and films started being made here. And I wish I kind of would have come back earlier, but I was very determined. Like I said, I was this bulldog. Like, I am not taking no for an answer. So I was just pounding on doors. And there's places to be in short films, like AFI, Film Institute's looking for actors. And then I joined SAG, and then I was trying to do short films and all the different student films, like with UCLA and all these different places where budding actors try to make their start.
Yeah. So you were doing some short films out there?
Actually, there I produced a lot of theater. I was trying to get a better agent when I was in LA. Right, I didn't start really making short films until I came back to Louisiana.
Okay. This podcast is sponsored by NAI Latter & Blum, Louisiana's leading commercial real estate firm, offering expertise in every discipline, including office, industrial, retail, multifamily, and corporate services. Their agents guide you through the real estate process from start to finish, using a host of marketing, prospecting, and analytical technologies. As leading entrepreneurs, your valuable time and resources should align with the most trusted name in commercial real estate, NAI Latter & Blum. Learn how they can work for you at www.ladderblum.com. Turnkey Solutions is a nationwide cybersecurity and IT systems expert, providing the services that growing businesses need to stay ahead of hackers, hurricanes, and IT nightmares. With 24/7 support teams and offices across Louisiana and Texas, they bring peace of mind to companies of all sizes. Their 5-star rated team provides lightning-fast IT support with the cybersecurity and business continuity solutions today's businesses demand. When you're looking for a technology partner to provide you with peace of mind, find out more by calling them at 225-224-6594 or chat with them online at www.tks.la/NXT. Things are happening in Louisiana, so you decide to come back to your roots?
Oh, yeah. My grandmother's prayers probably brought me back. But she would beg me every time she talked to me, like, please, there's industry stuff here. Come live with me. And, you can audition for the films. And, so we got an agent here. I say we because it was like a collective family effort.
Right.
And I'm now, 29. So I spent most of my 20s in LA.
Right.
I was very, very stubborn. And I cried in my little Prius all the way back home. My mom's like, I've never seen a human cry that much. Like, I didn't know there was enough tears, like the ocean pouring out of your face. And so I cried all the way because I felt like I was giving up on my dream, But then I got home and I started working immediately. So I got some really great auditions, and I got my first big role with Bruce Dern. I played opposite him as his hit woman in a movie called Inside Out. And I got to, fight with Triple H, which is a big wrestler. So a WWE movie. It was 5 weeks on set with Bruce Dern. It was amazing.
Wow.
So that was my first film that I landed here. And everybody's like, how did you, well, I don't know. I have some funny stories about how I got that role, but I won't go into it. Yeah.
We're here for the story.
You want to hear the story? Okay. This is going to make me sound really funny, but so I'm not a good reader. I don't read text well. I said I'm dyslexic. So, and then when my agent called, she's like, oh, you're reading for a monster on this movie. So I thought it was like some action film. And I had a bunch of auditions that week, so I wasn't really studying the script that much. So I go in and I'm like crawling on the ground and like getting ready in character, and everybody else is just like sitting around. I'm like, why are they not getting into the monster character? Like, why are they acting so duddish? And so I go in and I'm like, like looking out, and like the director's like, I like it. And he's like, keep it going. I was like, okay. I'm like doing all this stuff and doing my lines and all these things. And he's like, oh, wow, no one has had that take on it at all. He's like, that was amazing. I don't know what you're tapping into, but wow. And so I go home, more auditions that week. I'm doing all this stuff, and I go back for the callback again. And I'm like, I look at the casting director, and they're like, we really like what you did. Can you do that again? So I like do it. I was like, so when do you actually think she becomes a monster in the script? And they were like, well, she's kind of like that, like the whole time. I love that you're saying that. That's kind of what we feel too. Like she really is a monster. So I leave. And I go home, and I get a phone call from my agent. She's like, you booked it. You booked the Mobster. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? She's like, I was like, what Mobster? And she's like, no, you booked it, like the role with Bruce Dern. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was a monster the whole time. So I booked a role thinking it was a monster, but it's actually a mobster.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So anyway, that is how I booked that role.
That is so funny.
And I acted out for my family all the time, the animal exercises I was doing on the floor, and everybody must have thought I was insane. They're like, this girl is lost it. She has lost it.
So funny. So what, I guess the way that it works, you see this with, celebrities all the time. They get a role and one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
And I mean, whatever degree of, acting or celebrity you are, I guess that's how it works. But did you start to see any of that kind of effect?
Well,
the reason I'm asking, because it wasn't much longer and you're across from Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
So how did
the
that happen?
opportunities were just unreal. Like the auditions I was getting, like auditioning to be in scenes with Brad Pitt and be in scenes with, I didn't get that role, right. But like the auditions that you were getting were just like, what? And I was in shock. That's why I was like, I wish I'd have moved home sooner,
Yeah.
Really shocking. And so I guess, acting, they always talk about you never know when you're going to get your next job, or you never know what it's going to look like or what it's going to be. And honestly, that role, do you know about the book that he wrote called Green Lights?
Yes,
Matthew McConaughey.
I've read it, yeah. Okay,
well, in that book, he mentions my character. It was his idea to add my character to the story. And so it was 5 days before they wrapped, and they wanted to add this element to the lead, that he had a more human side to him.
Right.
And they wanted him to date this girl with AIDS.
Right.
But because of these tapes that he had found. So if you go into the book, he talks all about it. Matthew had approached the director saying, I want to add this element to it.
Right.
And so that was one. I just got a phone call. They had picked me off my reel. They said, we want you. I looked Eastern European enough. They were, they were from Canada. They were French, and they just loved me for some reason. I don't know. And they just picked me, and here I am. I walk on the set 5 days with Matthew McConaughey. They cut some of my scenes, unfortunately. So
Sure.
Like when I met him I got to meet him, and we had some lines and stuff at the support center in the movie. Anyway, they end up cutting that. Yeah. So it's kind of like goes straight to the juicy part.
Yeah.
But I think those opportunities are available in Louisiana. That would never have happened to me in LA. The odds of it happening are so low,
right.
like really low. So it just was like, what? And then,
so now that's an amazing role in a lot of ways. And when I'm thinking of McConaughey and how much weight that he lost for that Dallas
I didn't
Buyers
recognize
Club.
him when he walked up. I'm like, that can't be him.
Yeah, I bet. I mean,
He was like the size of this pole. He was just like skinny little guy.
Unbelievable.
And he's, ooh.
But he was the hottest actor in the world right
that
around
moment.
that time. I mean, and he's
And he did it for very little money because he was very passionate about the story.
Yeah.
And it was, the movie was made for very little. As far as indie budgets go, and when I got the movie, I didn't even think about it being an Oscar-winning movie. I just thought this was going to be like a small little side project that he had done, and to be able to say like, "Oh, I've contributed to an Oscar-winning movie or a role," is really cool.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you know, and I'm thinking, and Jared Leto was dressed in drag that whole movie, and I didn't realize it was him. I'm talking to him, not even knowing it's him. He's like, we're just having conversation and he's helping me with my role. He's like, why don't you try it like this? And not thinking, I'm just like, thought this was a really cute woman. It was Jared Leto. So it's a crazy, the whole experience. I didn't know what I was getting into doing the movie, and then it ended up being this big thing. Yeah.
Well, it was a big thing. So, a little bit of a steamy scene there. So,
something I'll never forget.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So,
but he's quite the gentleman, like very, very kind, very professional, very cool.
Yeah. He's a cool guy. So I live in Austin, and that's where his home is as well. So he's all about Austin,
Oh, sure.
So, we get to see him, a lot. It's, on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in BR, your things are happening.
Yes.
Right? And then, and tell us if there's anything more you want to talk about any of the other productions. But what I was intrigued with beyond that is you started to make some shorts, right?
Yes.
So how did that process start?
So I had this little vision of this idea I wanted to make. And so my husband was really, so after, being in the industry for a while, I kept getting the same kinds of roles. I'm starting to get typecast. I was like, I want to play a hero in a movie. That's never going to happen. Like, I'm never going to get the lead ingenue. I don't have the look. I'm kind of rough around the edges. I'm a horseback rider. What can I do? And he's like, make your own movies. Like, stop crying in your tea. Like, just come on, get up with, like, let's just do it. Cause he's a photographer, wants to be a cinematographer at that time. Yeah. And he's like, let's just do it. So I started on that path of figuring out how could I make that happen. And I just had people rally around me. So the moment I put my foot out to start producing, I literally took a step and I felt the wind at my back. It was like, whoo. And that was by, really awesome people in Baton Rouge saying, oh, you can use my property. Like Mike Wampole saying, hey, look, I have this property. I have these horses. You're welcome to use them.
No kidding.
My family's good friend. Right.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, I was at my dad's 60th birthday. I'm standing there, I'm telling someone, and someone overhears me saying Mike Wampole's letting me use the property for my first film. And it's a doctor named Dr. Oberlander. He looked at me and he's like, oh, I want to produce a movie. I'll help you. Come to my house in the morning. And he and his doctor friends rallied around me and helped me make my first short film.
No kidding.
And so it was not cheap either, my first short film. It was actually really expensive for a short film.
Yeah.
And they rallied around me, and here I am today. I don't know if those two things had not happened, if I would be sitting here.
That was which short? That
was Madeline's Oil. All these films you can see on Hogan Productions on YouTube. Short films are not things you go out and really sell. It's really a calling card for when you go to make features and what you're capable of with this budget. And then once you see that, you go, oh, well, she did this with this budget. What could she do with this?
Yeah. But also, what I've learned a little bit about it. I hired a filmmaker when I started this production company, Daniel Sagona, and funded a little short on a micro budget.
Oh.
I mean, really micro budget. And I was intrigued how many people he was to pull together. He did an 8-minute short.
Okay.
And he was very passionate about it. Mm-hmm. And he had the tenacity to see it through. It was probably 2 years before it was fully edited and that whole thing.
Yeah.
Because he had to go on and, feed his family kind of thing. But
it's a lot that goes
into it.
He
had like 30 people on this set, which he shot it in about 2 days or something like that. But I mean, I was like, oh my goodness. And, so you go to a theater and you see a film and you watch the credits at the end, and some of them had like 300. It seems like
it keep rolling and rolling.
Hundreds of people.
Everyone should always sit through the credits, by the way. Just pay respect to all those people that put all that work in there. So me and my husband have a rule. We never get up until the credits, until the lights come on and the credits are done. Because all those people really matter. Yeah. Absolutely. It's amazing the amount of people that go into making a film.
Yeah, that is crazy. Okay, so you did several of these shorts. You've got Last Light. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's about forgiveness. It's a woman telling her mother goodbye on her deathbed. It's about forgiveness in the last moments, and it's beautiful. That is a tearjerker right there.
And are you acting in all of these?
I'm directing that one.
Directing. With My Soul.
Okay, so this is close to kind of what I want to make long term. It's the biggest short film I've ever made. And we shot for 6 days, which is a long time for a short. And it's set during the Civil War. It's about nuns and nurses during the Civil War. So it's a period piece with horses and soldiers, and it's about human trafficking during Civil War. So it's like these 6 girls get, it's the biggest thing I've ever done. And that's one of my calling cards to kind of show about the shows that I want to make in the future. So
you're big on period pieces. Mm-hmm. That's kind of your genre.
I love the idea of time and timelessness and how we all struggle through the same things, even though could have been 1853 and now it's same struggles kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So your horseback riding kind of comes into play with
every film that I think I've done has a horse in it.
Oh, really?
I think I kind of made a rule that it would always be that way. The only one I think maybe is Last Light that doesn't.
Yeah. Painted Parakeets.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was our first film. We shot it in 24 hours. I don't know if you can even find that one, but we call it, we all slept on the floor that night after shooting for about, 20 hours or something. And so we call it Hardwood Floor Productions, that particular project. Because me and a couple friends getting together with some cameras trying to make a film. And we had nowhere to sleep because we were so zonked out. We fell asleep on the hardwood floor, and there was like cats pooping on us because they didn't want us in their house.
But I mean, isn't that the process? You start. I mean, that's what I think the value of those shorts are, and I didn't really realize it till fairly recently. But it's just a way, whether it's a 2-minute short or an 8-minute short or whatever, it's a way of progressing your skill set, right? And bringing your team together.
You got to start somewhere.
Right.
I mean, Madeline's Oil was my first professional short. I'd say Parenting Parakeets was my first attempt at making anything.
Right. No, I understand. So, but I mean, like those may not have followed if you hadn't started there.
You got to start somewhere. Right. Yeah. Like you really, that's what I tell people. Like you have your cell phone. Like you can make a short film right now. And as long as you've got a good story, like the meat and bones of a good story, you can do it. Yeah.
The verses.
So have you ever heard of Louisiana Film Prize? Louisiana Film Prize is and there's like a $50,000 prize for if you make a film in the northern part of Louisiana.
Right.
And so that's where I started meeting a lot of film friends, and we got competitive. And so I was like, I'm going to make another one for Film Prize. And so that film is about, it's about a man and a woman trying to help a runaway slave. It's really powerful. It's on Hogan Productions too. It's really good.
Bamboo House.
Oh man. Written by a 16-year-old and me together about losing her grandfather. Really sweet story. Oh my gosh. She wrote a monologue in my acting class about losing her grandfather, and it went viral. And so we were like, this is awesome. So we approached her dad, like, Dad, can we make a short film? And I'm telling you, we went to the Louisiana Film Prize for that. It got in the top 5.
Okay.
People related to that movie. It's a 16-year-old little piece. I mean, she acted in it. She wrote it. I directed it. And it's about like building a little bamboo house in her backyard where her and her grandfather would hang out. Oh. It's the sweetest thing in the world. Oh my gosh. You got to see that one. That is one of my favorites.
Seed of the Free.
That's about Sojourner Truth, the woman, a historical figure. She was the first Black woman to win a court case against a plantation owner. She got her son back. And so it's a very liberating kind of story and like strength, and it's got a great hymn in it. She sings. It's like powerful.
How long was that one?
That one's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that average for your shorts?
Yeah. About 15 minutes. It's like, that's the high end.
That's the high end of a short.
Yeah, a short, yeah.
Touched.
touched is actually, that's my second feature I'm working on right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So it's my short film that we made.
Got it.
We're trying to turn it into a feature, but it's about, a girl trying to overcome sexual assault in a really creative, beautiful way.
You have made a feature film.
Yes. I'm like, it's my Kilimanjaro, shall we say.
Days of Daisy?
Yes. I'm wearing the shirt today, if you can see. See, it says Daisy on the back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is that about?
It's a very truthful story.
Yeah.
Based on Aaron and I's life and our decision to not have children and how we came to that decision. And so
you play you.
I play me, and I really did it as like, I really wanted to tell this story because I was grieving at 38. I was struggling with not having kids. And so they say, turn your pain into art. So I did. I just wrote the bullet points and showed it to a friend. And I had just come off of a movie with Ethan Hawke, this movie called Blaze. And I was working on the producer team, and he had let me cast a lot of the roles, and I was working with his wife. His wife is the producer. They had done it for a small budget.
Yeah.
And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, I was like, I felt energized by learning so much from them and how they did it.
Right.
And so I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. I know I can do it. So I started raising the money for this movie and kind of writing the script at the same time, kind of as a kind of therapy about not having kids.
So tell me if I heard this right. Like, when you go to write a movie, to get I don't know, maybe get it funded by the people that would support that, it really needs to be in the form of like a screenplay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to have a story. And sometimes it's just a pitch deck with concept.
Okay.
But a script is like gold. Like, once you've got a good script, people can get behind it because they might like it.
Right.
If you just show them a bunch of pictures of something you think you want to make, it's kind of like, oh, let's see what the script is like.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have it all in order to pitch.
But that process of writing, so I don't really know what a screenplay is, but what I think of it is like this scene, this is what happens in this scene, like the script for this scene, and then the next location. Is that?
I mean, kind of, yeah, there's like an outline that you kind of know. Like, for me, I'm not a writer.
Right.
I know, because I can barely write a sentence, remember? So I bullet point kind of what I think happened in my life that they could probably use, like the writers could use. I bullet point it out, and then I turn it over to some professional writers and hire them to write it, because there's an art to that. And specifically, you want to pick something and really get good at it, in the film industry, because there's so many different jobs and a lot of different great people that can do them way better than you and have been doing it for 20 years.
All right. So if you have, say, 30 people on a 8-minute short, in that example I told you about earlier, and you look at a major motion picture, and there's seemingly hundreds, what would your feature, how many people are engaged, involved?
That
was an hour and a half type.
Yeah. How many people? There's probably like 60 or 80 people involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely somewhere in there. On set, we probably had about 40, 45 people, something like that, not including the actors. It's just a lot of payroll on a movie. And so, we only shot Daisy for 19 days originally, and the movie was made in January of 2020. Had we pushed 1 month, we couldn't have made the movie, because it was the day, like, we wrapped pretty much the day COVID broke out.
Oh my goodness.
So we got it right under there. Yeah. It was
so
great.
Y'all could edit afterwards.
Yeah. We had to do some reshoots and stuff, which was tough during COVID, but.
Pivotal is pleased to sponsor the Next Entrepreneur podcast. Pivotal is a commercial building contractor that performs new building construction, building maintenance, tenant improvements, renovations, and additions. Pivotal has been in business for over 25 years. The Pivotal team is simply the best. They have an impeccable safety record, and they crush schedules. A focus on quality and professional communication is at the root of their success. Pivotal also performs programs for clients who build in multiple markets, with current projects in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. If you are looking for the perfect addition to your project team, a contractor who can deliver the results you need to succeed, Pivotal is the one. When it's critical, call Pivotal They can be found online at pivotalperforms.com. This podcast is sponsored by Mayhall Fondren Blaze, a Louisiana business litigation firm, offering sophisticated legal advice that is tailored to meet the needs of their individual clients, including a wide variety of litigation, complex business negotiations, corporate formations, closings, and title examination. As leading entrepreneurs, your valuable time and resources should align with the expertise of MFB, a Louisiana practice made for business. Learn how we can work with you at www.mfbfirm.com. Could you or your business benefit from a comprehensive financial plan? Our sponsor, Centura Advisors, is a locally owned firm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana that specializes in personal and business financial planning, tax planning, corporate retirement plans, and investment management. We provide an all-in-one wealth management service so busy business owners like you can take back your valuable time. Visit www.centura-advisors.com to learn more. Centura Advisors, it's time to plan your future. So how long is that edit process when you're doing a feature film?
It depends on how many reshoots you need and if the actors are available to come back to set. You know, you try to get something together within about 3 or 4 months of having shot it.
Right.
And then you start submitting to festivals and try to like get some buzz around it.
Right.
Once it's finished. And then you're looking for sales agents to represent you, to go out to distribution companies to try to pitch it. And then hopefully it gets picked up by distribution and they then sell it to the big, networks or streaming platforms. So right now, Daisy will come out on May 26th on the streaming platforms, and I have a distribution deal. And so a percentage of it goes to the distributor, and then, investors will get paid back. We also have the tax credits in Louisiana, which is really nice.
So are you on the brink of maybe making some money on this?
Woo! I mean, I sure hope so.
Fantastic.
that would be a dream. I mean, my goal for my first feature was to do the tax credits,
right?
Do it well, get approved, figure that out, and also so that I could pay some of my investors back just through that, and then to break even or make us some money. That was kind of my first goal.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Saw where you had co-direct and produce Devil's Hitching Post.
Yes.
And what was that about?
That was someone else's baby.
Right.
Like it's her own project. And we were actually able to use the Magnificent Seven set. So we were able to shoot a massive Western, 168 scenes on the set of Mag 7. Out in, the St. Francisville area. Again, a lot of my films have been made out in that area.
Right.
St. Francisville, all those areas. Blaze, Ethan Hawke's movie was out there too.
Oh.
So I've spent a lot of time kind of in that area. So yeah, that movie was a learning experience because my husband and I, for the first time, were directing and he was shooting. We were doing it together.
Really?
And I pulled a lot of favors and a lot of friends to come out. And because it wasn't our movie, we didn't have a lot of control on how it came out. And so it hasn't hit the theaters yet. It hasn't come out. It hasn't been distributed. So we're just kind of waiting for that whole process to unfold and see how it all comes together. But sometimes movies can take like 10 years before they come out.
That's
amazing. Mine, luckily, has only taken me about 2 years to get out. But I mean, it can take a while if it's something that big like that one.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, tell me about Claws.
Oh my gosh, what a great opportunity! So
it's a TV show.
So what happened? Yeah, it's a TV show. But a lot of times you go into these auditions and it's like a very simple role, and that's what happened. I was in the pilot, and I had a funny character, and like my line is hilarious. And like my lines in the first, so the writer loved my take on it and everything. And so he's like, we're going to give you a name. Next thing I know, they're writing my character into the show. So it's like a dream. Like, oh, we're bringing Verla back. And so her name was Verla Mender. I play her, I think in 6 episodes of the show. It's like I brought her back every year. So maybe a couple times one year, I can't remember. But Verla, she's a crazy pill popping drug addict. And so she's wild. She's a wild one.
And
that
where
was
is that
super fun. Super fun to play.
Where is that filmed at?
In New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's over now. It was just a four season show.
Okay, so I want to circle back to Days of Daisy because that was, you mentioned, a very personal story.
Yes.
And about you and your husband, your decision to not have children. But I spoke with your husband.
Yes.
And it seems as if in the making of that, while you played yourself, another actor played him.
Yes.
And he told a funny story I had him on the podcast a few months ago, and where it seemed to be a change of heart. And he started to look at that guy like, man, that guy's kind of a jerk.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
We're watching it in our house. He didn't tell me he had that visceral reaction to the movie, but he was like, those are lines that came out of my mouth. Like, that's not cool. Like, he really is a jerk.
That's what happened.
Yeah. And there's a series of events and things that, like, eye-opening experiences throughout that next, 2 to 3 months that he was like, I think I want to have a child with Jency. And it was just amazing. Like, it was like all my dreams were coming true because not only have I been able to make a bunch of movies, but also I get to have a baby. This is so exciting. And so at first we didn't know how it would happen. And then after a lot of research and 2 rounds of IVF, we realized adoption is really our best bet. And we always had our heart for adoption because of all of our nonprofit work in Haiti and our heart for, people who are in need. So it makes a lot of sense for us to adopt.
That's fantastic. And I read something as well that that in your approach, in your acting coaching business, that you and Aaron kind of have this paternal kind of flair to it all. Yeah.
So throughout the years, I believe in God. So this is really cool because the years of me not having children, I was like longing for that relationship, but God just kept plunking these kids into my life through teaching acting. So I have a few kids who started with me when they were 11 and now they're 16, 17 years old. So I've gotten to watch their careers develop as little actors, but also just become great close friends with them. Some of them call me like their second mom. Yeah. So God provided these relationships with these young people in the meantime, while I was waiting for like getting to be a mom myself. And so it's just been really special. And a lot of them are in Daisy, which is really cool. How like all full circle, like they're in Daisy. They're my kids, like spiritually, mentally, because I've been around them, helped raise them, kind of.
So in Daisy, you're a librarian.
Mm-hmm. So that's not true.
That part was
so it's like loosely based on our own story, but a lot of people, it's like a little funny.
But
it's
your
a little
husband
funny movie.
Was a photographer, which is that right?
Did
I read that right?
Yes.
Which he is.
Yeah. He's a photographer in the movie. Daisy and Jack meet. He doesn't want kids. He's already had a vasectomy. He wants to make, have an impact on the greater good of humanity through his art and through just, doing humanitarian work. And he kind of convinces her that we can just be parents through what we do now. And Daisy does find that within the movie. She finds that the kids are a part of her life. And, it ends with the birthday party of the kids loving on her and her loving on the kids, and it's just a really sweet ending. And so what it is for the people who like maybe haven't been able to experience parenthood. Right. That's what the movie's for. Right, exactly. In the traditional sense. Right. But they still are experiencing it spiritually, mentally through loving who's around them.
Yeah. But it's interesting, right? Yes. Because you go through that process of making that life decision, right? Yeah. And then living that life, and then making a movie about it. Yes. And then changing.
Is it a heart change? I was shocked.
From seeing, in part, your own work.
Yes. I always wanted kids. That was what was crazy. Aaron was the one that had the full heart change, Right. And I feel like this time in our life is the perfect time to do it because our careers have kind of, we've been able to really do them. And I think if we'd done them 10 years ago if we would have had kids 10 years ago, maybe it would have, been a different situation. Yeah.
So change the subject, but I was curious, your thoughts on community theater.
Yeah. I'll go and watch it a lot. I wish I could do it. It's such a big time commitment. Yeah. I have so much respect for Theater Baton Rouge, and I love a good show. And my dream for a long time was to produce a play and a movie every year because my degree is in theater and I love it. I love live audiences. I love the response. There's nothing like it. It's kinetic energy. It's just like, it's nothing like live applause. It's just like, you don't get that in film set, you know?
Are there enough opportunities for young kids?
There are. The CYT is in Baton Rouge, which is a great program. Playmakers, Theater Baton Rouge. I mean, my first acting class was at Theater Baton Rouge when I lived in Baton Rouge. And then when I was in San Diego, my parents took us to San Diego for a while as a kid. And I was at CYT. I was in the first founding thing of CYT, which is Christian Youth Theater. And they have that here in Baton Rouge. And so I tell a lot of parents, like, start your kids off in theater because it's so fun. And if they really are passionate about acting, they'll end up, with me at some point.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I've read that, when you think about your legacy, that it's not about being famous or being a celebrity but it's more about leaving behind quality film projects that could be there for the benefit of generations to come.
Isn't that awesome? The idea that, theater can't be that way. There's certain things, like paintings live on. Photographs live on if they're archivable. Film can live forever if archived correctly. And now with the way the digital age is moving, I think we'll be able to do that better. But what I'm saying, it lives forever. And so you can pass messages down to people 100 years from now. They could watch your films and kind of get what you were about.
Yeah. I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah. So really we are it is a beautiful time where film is a really powerful medium to leave a legacy. Yeah. And my dream is to make a huge show for Baton Rouge and put everybody to work for 12 years. Like Call the Midwife is doing in London, I want to do something similar to that here.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Tell us about that.
Call the Midwife is a show that has run for 12 seasons. I mean, not many shows ever make it that long.
Right.
But it's written by women, directed by women, female-based kind of content about some nuns and nurses post-World War II in the Upper East Side of London. So I just have a dream of making a really quality period type show in this area, St. Francisville here, kind of where I've based all of my work.
Right.
It's accumulating all to this big show that I want to create. That's kind of my big dream. And it would have a lot of female leading roles. Men would be in there too, because they have to support us, as men do so well. So that's really my big dream. And so I call it my 50-year-old dream because I'm 44. So like 50 years old, I want to be making this show.
Wow.
So that's kind of my big business plan for my life.
What a vision.
Thank you.
And that's going to take some money.
Yes. And I'll have to work and build respect through the next films that I make.
Right.
And build, we call it kind of like collateral, we need a little bit of, you got to have some history in this industry for people to trust you for the big stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. I also read that you and your husband want to become known as the best filmmakers to come out of Baton Rouge.
Yes.
So that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah. You've got Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Who else?
Well, that's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's the one that pops into my mind. Yeah, I'd love to leave that legacy here, and leave behind an education program where other people from Baton Rouge can learn film. So that's kind of one of my dreams too, is kind of to bring people with us along that journey and have a school where people can learn acting for film and how to make a movie right here at our studio. And I think it's something we need in our city.
Yeah. I went to your office to meet your husband before I had him on the podcast.
Cool.
Aaron Hogan with I Wander. And I loved the whole thing. It's so diverse. You've got the photography studio and the way that it's designed, you can do so many different things there. I've never been in a place like it. And, when you think about having headshots done or corporate pictures or group shots, it's really a fascinating place. But your acting school's there and your home is there and the office is there. And I was just really captivated by it. It's a beautiful spot. Y'all did a wonderful job with that.
Thank you. I think Aaron might have missed his calling as a interior designer / architect. Like he changed the plans 46 times.
Yeah.
Our architect was like, okay, I'm so done with you.
Yeah.
But Aaron's a creative. So he was just like, oh, and then to the paint color, for example, on the outside of the building.
Yeah.
I think he went to the paint store 14 times. And that was the 37th version of that blue.
No kidding.
The guy was like, "You've lost your mind, dude. It's the same." He's like, "No, there's more green in this one." You know? I mean, he was like so into the color of the building, and there's like an orange door with the big blue building. You know, it's just he was really into the details of that.
Yeah,
of
well,
making that.
You know, it's that I wander thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and he told the story. I loved hearing Aaron's story about how he fell in love with photography and this certain scene, and
Yes.
I really appreciate that. Jency, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories. You're a great storyteller.
Oh, thanks. I had so much fun, and I love what you're doing. And to all you entrepreneurs out there, I hope all your dreams come true. Dream bigger than you could ever imagine, and you don't know what can happen.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Jency. It was so fun. I really love looking at her story, and she started, just doing acting, and then getting her degree in college, going out to Los Angeles, taking a lot of classes out there, getting back to Baton Rouge, and really getting some opportunities, and then growing and starting. She talks about that first short she did was just probably amateurish, but that led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And now she's done so many fascinating projects. Days of Daisy comes out real soon. We're really excited for her about that. And then her vision for the future is just really exciting. So we appreciate Jency coming in. We appreciate you guys watching. And we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.